Well, hi there. I know this setting looks a little weird to you because there's not enough light. I have a light, I'm not willing to switch it on because it then reflects from my eyes. Also, the background is a little bit poor because this is my roommate's bed and he hasn't mended. That one is mine. That one also looks that one also looks same, but yeah. So, without further ado, without further delay, let's see what the blog for today is. So today's blog title is it's writing logic in CSS, and my CSS is also very bad. And I thought, okay, let's see why not? Let's do it. And in this one, we'll be understanding why how we can write logics in CSS like if and for and all of that stuff. Because a lot of people don't actually even know that that you can write logics in CSS, and this happened when I was teaching one of my courses here in Canada, and I said to students, that there are so they were asking like what is this? So it was, I think it is right now in web services, and when I told them that HTML is a programming language, whereas XML is not sorry, HTML is a markup language, and whereas XML is not a markup language, and they asked me like what is difference between a markup and a programming language, and I told them that you can write logics in a programming language, and they asked me what is CSS, so I said that CSS is a programming language because you can write logics, and they were like pretty shocked. So I thought, okay, let's review this one. And this blog is written by Daniel Schulz on February 21, writing logics in CSS. So what he says is that because of the unique use case and its declarative nature of CSS, it's sometimes hard to understand. And to be very honest, I did this tweet, I think 2 months or 3 months back, that for normal programmers, when you want to apply for an SDE job, you normally do data structures, and that's the most difficult part, right? Writing logics and data structures in any language. But when you are a front-end developer, CSS is the most difficult part. For once you can understand React.js, for once you can understand Next.js, you can do a lot of stuff, GraphQL, Redux, all of that. For once, even like you can understand Redux. I think CSS is difficult than Redux as well. So for me, understanding Redux in the first site was very difficult. But CSS is like way, way, way difficult than this one. So more traditional general purpose languages, and these are the conditions, loops, and logic gates. All of that you get in CSS. Those structures are named differently. Their syntax is widely different to better accommodate the specific use case of styling, but you need to know that this exists. Okay, so first we have variables. So variables, I guess most of the people use when they use SCSS. So but anyhow, in normal CSS as well, in vanilla CSS, you also get variables. So everyone calls them variables anyway, even their own syntax. So here we have a root variable over here, and inside the root variable you have a color as red. So when you do root.color or something like that, variable color blue, so it gives root the color as blue, right? So double dash declares a variable and assigns a value. So initially by default it is red, and like this is text color. Okay, so this is by default red, and if we are giving, so let's say in span we are giving variable the value blue, so for that particular span it will convert into blue. Now we have conditions. So condition is if something is true, if something is false. So this is how you do a lot of advanced CSS manipulations as well. When let's say there's a toggle button or something like that, you just change one property, and you just have to change one property. Let's say it's a dark mode to a light mode. This is where you use normally these selectors, sorry, these conditions in various kind of selectors and all that stuff. Now you have something known as pseudo classes as well. So let's say a checkbox is checked or not. So checked by default is true or false. So here it is. That's why it is using. So if it is checked, do this. If it is not checked, do this. So this is sort of an if else, but using checked and not checked. Then you of course have media queries, which is like the best part of CSS, which is media queries to make your page more responsive. And over here as well you have these conditions, and then inside the conditions you can give variable different kind of values for different kind of DOM elements. Then you have loops are counters and counters. So it's like it can be a counter or it can be a time, what do you call it, a stopwatch, where you have like back counting. So you can use counters in the content the property displaying it as text. You can tweak its increment, its starting point, its value at a given point, but the output is always limited to text. All of this. Okay, I don't know. I just woke up. I'm feeling too much dizzy right now. I was like, every Saturday, Sunday, every weekend, in morning I have to make a video, and I was like, okay, let's do it. So you have counters, and you can also use counters in the content property displaying it as text. You can tweak its increment and its decrement value. So by default, you get a counter property, and it works like a loop only. So when you do a counter up, it's like till infinity, and if you are not giving an upper bound, um, yeah. But what if you wanted to use a loop to define a recurring layout pattern or something like that? This kind of loop is a bit more obscure. It's grid autofill property. Oh, dude, how does it even happening? The fills with grid. Okay, so but what if you wanted to use a loop to define a recurring layout pattern? This kind of loop is a bit more obscure. Yeah, this doesn't look like even a loop. So with grid, what you can have is you can do a display grid and grid interpolate columns, repeat autofill min max 300 pixel to one fraction part. So this fills the grid with as many elements as it can fit, while scaling them to fill the available space but breaking them into multiple rows when it needs. Oh, it repeats as long as, oh wow, this is happening automatic. I mean, like, this is nice. It repeats for as long as it find items and caps them to a minimum width of 300 px and a maximum. Okay, so minimum width is going for 300 and maximum width is going for the one fraction, like one complete fraction of its own size. It's probably easier to see this to happen. And finally, there are looped selectors. They take an argument which can be a formula to select very precisely. Yep, this is what happens is, let's say there are, oh, I don't know that this is also loop, but yeah, like you can do this in a loop form where you have, let's say, 2n or 2n plus 2. This is normally we use as well. So when making out different kind of patterns, or let's say there is an FAQ, right? There is an FAQ section. One question should be red colored, another question should be blue color, and there are, let's say, odd 1 3 5 7, all these are red, and 2 3, so you use these formulas over there. That's nice. This is also a kind of loop, right? So for really specially edge case, you combine ns child and not like this. Oh, you combine the ns child and then not in that thing as like this. So it's every third element but not the sixth element. So let's say every third element but not six, or not, let's say, not maybe one like sixth element, or not maybe like multiples of six. Like you can do that, right? Then you have logic gates, which is the, I think by far, like the most understood one is, and Tudor wrote an article on CSS logic gates. Okay, you have a different blog on CSS logic gates. Those work on the idea of combining variables with calc. She then goes on 3D modeling and animating objects with that. Kind of read like arcane magic, gets away more insane, and is generally one of the best explanations why CSS is in fact a programming language. Yeah, I get it. So the techniques are, let's say this is the owl sector technique, which is like you elements all elements or with all elements. Okay, the owl selector selects every item that follows an item, applying a margin top to effectively add the gap between the items like grid gap does, but without the grid system. This also means more customizable. You can override margin top and that for any kind of content. So this, what it does is gap between the items. So this is providing a gap between the items, like you normally have grid, but like we can do it with root element as well, right? Like why this star and with star. Okay, you have an in-depth article on this one. So wow, these are like chaining of blogs, one blog after the other after the other. Weird. Kevin Penkham has an in-depth article on that. Explains even algorithm in pseudocode style. Wow. Conditional styling. We can create toggles in our CSS. Oh yeah, that's what I was talking about. Now you combine all of these properties, a lot of them, and you can create even like toggles and all that, switches and stuff. So when you do, oh, you do this and you do this. Wow, this looks dope, right? That's nice. So we can create toggles in our CSS code that switch certain rules on and off, and with variables and calc, this gives us very versatile. I mean, like, this looks very dope, but this complete writing this thing is like intense work. you have to spend a lot of time even like creating a component, a small component like this. It takes a lot of time, and it's like this information is like really crucial to understand. So you have something like front end wars, where you have like css styling wars going on. I think front end masters has this, of I mean, like, I don't remember the website, but it was very popular for this one. But you have this thing, right? I mean, like, it's difficult to understand, it's difficult to do at the same time. I mean, like, when you do this looks like, oh wow, what is even happening in this, right? But with like one simple checking the icon and not checking the icons, like, a lot of things are getting added and stuff. You have padding, color, background color, border. Depending on the value of this and this, it will either enable or disable its alert styles. Yep, that's understood. But adding this, like writing this part, either you're copy pasting on Stack Overflow, that's fine. But if like writing this from very scratch takes lot of skill level. I can't do this. I'm not able to understand. I'm like, I am understanding like this is a calculating function, and it's passing the variables and all that stuff. Like this, these are the constant, the default ones, and this is like a variable which is changing. For padding, for color, this is hue saturation, and inside hue saturation it is giving hue as this HSV, right, or HSL, I guess. Yeah, HSL, hue saturation, and lightness, I guess. So lightness, it is giving it 80%, and then for saturation it is calculating all of that stuff using the variable part. But I mean, like, it's difficult to understand and do that, right? Automatic contrast colors. So now you have, let's take some logic one step further and create a color variable that's dependent on its contrast to background color. Contrast to background color. Oh wait, dude, that's nice. Okay, you have a sample here. Oh, the text color automatically changes. That's nice. And you just have this slider, and you are changing the variable value and then how it changes, right? Now, for let's say for an instance, you can even automate all of this. And let's say if the time is in the daytime, you can make your website look uh, like all this white theme and all that. And if it is night, then you can do it in a dark mode. That's great. So I'll subtract a threshold value. Okay, so there he tells the complete logic of this one, HSL, the hue saturation lightness. Okay. Again, over here it is doing the all the magic stuff, because all these are variables, and in this it is changing the value of the background. Yeah. So this snippet calculates the background color from HSL values and a black or a white font color by inverting the background lightness value. This alone could result in low color contrast. A 40% gray and a 60% gray background is pretty much illegible. So I'll subtract a threshold value multiplied by an insanely high value like 1000 and clamp it between 10% to 95%. That's what the value it can give. Like what do you call it? High frequency high pass filter, HPF, high pass filter, right? To get a valid lightness percentage. Okay, great. This method can also be used to write intricate color logic and automatic themes based on HSL values alone. Right, intricate color logic. So that's what I told you. You can, like, this creates a lot of thing in my mind right now. You can use it like a hell lot of places. You can use this for cleaning up the style sheet. So let's combine what we have so far to clean up the life. Oh, not lifestyle. It's the style sheet. Sorting everything by viewports seems a bit spaghetti, but sorting it by component doesn't feel any better. Okay. So with variables, we can have the best of the both worlds. Yep, of course. So we have variables for everything, and then we are just changing out the variables wherever we need. So min width, root. For the min width, we have a root, and then the template is also changing. So body, same thing happens over here. Now, what you are doing is essentially you're giving a variable template. You have a variable template over here. No, yeah, normal one, this one. And this variable is again using a variable which is template S by default. Maybe somewhere like over here, I guess they are changing variable to template L. Oh, that's nice. This creates a lot of Like even if I change, can I home. Oh no, rerun. Hmm. You see a lot of things that are happening over here, and this is all is created in this vanilla Java or vanilla CSS. All global variables are defined at the very top and sorted by viewport. That selection effectively becomes the definition of behavior, clearing questions like which global aspects of styles do we have, and like this helps very much in when you're working in well-established startups or companies where they have their own rules for CSS, their own libraries, their own CSS libraries, their own CSS templates. I mean, like this is mainly used over there, and themes. So normally companies have these themes because they have to match a lot of color psychology, color coding. They can't like every day change their stuff, and for every component they need the same colors, the same template, the same themes. Uh, so it's very much helpful. It just helps solving the problem of dry that do not repeat yourself, and also helps when once, because companies normally have like 10,000 and thousands of lines of code. So let's say declaring CSS again and again, it is hell lot of problem. And even I guess again and again, if you declare CSS, so on the web page as well, because let's say the web page is server rendered, and now you are displaying google.com, so Google has to like for every component get that CSS part. I don't know how this like variables work on the back end, like what they do at the compilation time, and when the build is done, like what happens to variables when the build is done. I'm not sure about that, but like that would be an interesting thing to look for. Let's see. Let's dive into it. CSS variables at build time. What happens to them at build time? Um, CSS dynamic with CSS custom properties, custom CSS variable to SCSS variable to CSS variable during build time. Okay, so no, that's a different question. I don't want that one. What happens to CSS variables at the build time, bro? Oh, we have MD and docs page for this one. Wow, that's nice. Custom property fallback values. What happens with invalid variables? Nope. Where is it telling me what happens at build time? Build building blocks. No, dude. I think you know to know about this. Building the CSS variable booth. Oh no, he's like move this. No, he's doing something weird. Scoping CSS variables. Nope. Using them. Nope. Properties worth mentioning. Nope. This one is also a nice blog by Free Code Camp. This is much better than what we are doing right now. Let's build stuff. No, this is part of the article we've been. No, this is telling me to. I don't want this. I want what happens on the build time, bro. Not you building a fucking project out of it. Um, nope. No, he's not telling this one. Okay, fine. Um, all the global variables are defined at the very top and sorted by viewport. This section effectively becomes the definition of behavior. Okay. With which global aspect of the style sheet do we have? I'm thinking of things like font color, CSS, repeating measures, etc. Which frequently changing aspects do we have? Container widths, grid layouts, and like come to my mind. Okay, how should the value between viewports, which global styles to apply to which viewport? Well, the rule definitions are by component. Media queries aren't needed here anymore because they are already defined at the top, but put into variables just code along in our style sheet. So, okay, let's say reading the hash parameter. I guess hash is what? ID, and ID we are, I guess, let's select item 1, item 2, item 3. Okay, so what we are doing here is a special use case of pseudo class is the target sector selector, which can read the hash fragment of the URL. Oh, target can Oh, targeting can read the route params as well. Here's a demo that uses this mechanic to simulate an SPA-like experience. Exactly, we have like it was doing. We are just doing React router stuff with CSS target selector. Weird. But that's nice. Yeah, item one, item two, you have different item three. Dude, that's nice. I've written a post on that. Okay, so he has written a different complete I guess blog post on that. Just be aware of this. That's some serious accessibility implications and need some JavaScript mechanics to actually be barrier free. That's why you don't see this in live environment. When normally we see React params or next routes. Setting variable in JavaScript. So maintaining CSS variable has become a powerful tool by now. Okay. So this is the code pen example. Like let's say we are doing it in normal vanilla JS. So if we let's say we want to put some dynamic stuff over there in CSS, we can just change the variable value, and we are good to go, right? So this code pen example above worked just like this. Okay, yeah, that's what I was saying, right? So CSS is very much capable of defining smart and reactive layout system. Its control structures may be a bit weird, but they are I mean like they are weird, but they are very much used, and they are very much um, they make the task easier, just by declaring a lot of stuff again and again. You put it in variables, you put like if and all the loops and stuff. Now loops, I don't think there is like a normal loop as in loop thing going on over here, like for or while and all that stuff. It's just you are using a to n thing or checked or unchecked, and then like media queries and all that stuff in order to maintain a kind of a loop thing. It's not something which happens by default, like if and all that stuff is happening, but again that is not happening in if and like logic form. That is happening more in like square brackets and all that stuff. That's what I guess the blog said in the starting, that the syntax is not proper, but you tend to call that again logics and all that stuff only. The syntax is not like very much evident, very much understandable. Folks here might like my talk. That's how these guys promote these stuff, right? I knew about awesome CSS only SPA like navs to think target, but I don't know CSS counters. Thanks for sharing. Yep, that's a really brilliant read, right? I mean, like this one was nice. You can I have like a limited time span with these videos and all that stuff. That's why I'm not like completely diving deep into this one, but of course, like what you can do is you can dive deep into this, because there are a lot of content, and then there are a lot of blog linkage as well over here. So for even like one concept like CSS logic is, you have a complete different blog. Then even like for this out selector part, you have like in-depth article. So I would recommend you to go on for this whole blog, read it thoroughly, and then also read the chained blogs. That's nice. That's all for this video, guys. Thank you. Bye.